Hello everyone. Today I'd like to talk about the sun and the moon, their spiritual force and what they symbolize within us as humans and their effect that they have on us. Now there are a few different aspects to the sun and moon that are fairly coherent and common in many different faiths. Basically I'm gonna be talking about the sun and moon in Hinduism though, and this also shares very similar aspects in other faiths and other forms of spirituality or magic. But I'm going to look at it through a Hindu perspective. You know, all Hindus don't believe this, but many do. And I'm one of them, of course, since I'm going to be talking about these aspects. But let's go ahead and get started. The sun and the moon, they both have a relationship to each other that's like yin and yang. It's kind of like this constant circular force that they emit and hold each other in. And this also has to do with psychological aspects in the human being. Not that they are the forces that plant this in us, but that they have an effect on those forces and have equal quantities within every single person and animal, for that matter. Now, some of the aspects of the moon are in Hinduism are calmness, patience, and wisdom. In Hinduism, the moon is fairly subdued. It's a subdued aspect in our minds, and it's a force that is very subdued. It doesn't emit a lot of light, obviously, literally, and it exists at a time, night, where the sun is not, that is very quiet. And this is how it exists within us. We naturally want to be up during the day. Not that everybody does. There's plenty of people who are on night shifts, but us as human beings naturally want to be up during the day. That's how we kind of start off as human beings. And there are a few different kinds of people that are active at night in mythology and in stories that are religious or scriptural based. And there's two kinds of people that are active at night, two main kinds of people in stories in Hinduism and mythology. The people who want to be hidden from the society that they're in, that want to be concealed and participate in activities at night that they don't want to be seen by others, so that they can live their own pleasures and practice their own, dark paths in a place of seclusion and at a time when other elements in society that believe the opposite of them won't be pestering them or trying to condemn them or trying to catch them, even if their acts are heinous. Especially if their acts are heinous. And it's completely opposite for the sun, of course. But the other kind of group that is constant in Hindu stories that are active at night are those who are very spiritually advanced. Those who don't want to be bugged by people during the day, that don't want to be bugged by the activity during the day that every society basically participates in. And they find it nice and quiet and calm, so that they can meditate. The effect of the atmosphere of the world at night, their part of the world at night, is perfect for meditation, contemplation, and inner work, inner alchemy, inner spiritual progress, whatever that might be, getting closer to God within, and not having distractions that are present during the day at night that are produced from society, noise, things like that. Now, there are some bad aspects to the lunar effect on our person, but also that are symbolic within every person. Now, the ones that are bad would be kind of, I guess you could say passiveness. A feeling of not having duty. Not having a duty to society, to operate in society. And this is kind of what yogis and renunciates are accused of by people in society when they look down on renunciates, is that they aren't fulfilling their duty to society by participating in it, by being a part of a family or providing for their family, something like that. Passiveness. And another one would be, I guess you could say, dark energy workings. Now, a lot of dark rituals, whether it be magic, occult, religious, spiritual, blasphemous, dark energy workings are most effective at night because you don't have the prevalence of light. And light energy is naturally emitted by virtuousness, virtuous people, and that's why they're active during the day, because they feel fueled by it. Now, people who are the opposite, who are fueled by darkness, shadow, energy, will be active at night so that they can be a part of that energy and increase in that way and do their workings at night for those reasons. And now, this isn't as many people as most people in religions imagine. There's not constant demonic people doing terrible things at night, or night isn't the time when all the bad people come out. That's usually not the case. It's that's part of even a deeper level of illusory mythology than just surface mythology. But that's one of the aspects, bad aspects of lunar energy, in which it is used at night. And the third, let's go ahead and divide these. The third aspect of the lunar force that may be negative, or the acceptance of the lunar force, the use of the lunar force that is negative for oneself and for others. The third one I'm going to talk about is, and I'm just coming up with these off the top of my head because I've been researching this for a while, but I didn't have this planned in advance. That's why some of my points may seem unlinear, and same with previous videos. But the last negative lunar connotation I'll write down is desire to be alone. Now, those with feelings of separation from society, not just because they want to do negative practices at night. Those who feel like they're an enemy of society because they're looked down on or they're shunned, they naturally want to be active at night and they're naturally fed by the darkness of night in their loneliness, because they feel like when they go out and communicate with people, they're just not getting anything back from them. So they want to be active at night because they feel less abused socially. They feel less put down or looked down on by everybody in society, because there's not that many people around at night. So they do their activities at night. This is more of an inner human lunar force, or lunar aspect to our psyche, that if we want to be alone, we're active at night. And it's actually not necessarily evil. It's just despair, agony, and loneliness. These forces that we experience as human beings, they're not necessarily evil, but their effect on us is evil. And we're not evil for necessarily embracing them. We're just beaten for embracing them. We feel beaten, and we look down on ourselves, so we're active when there's not that many people around. And you can think of all kinds of people that you might know that are depressed, and they're more active at night because they simply don't want to be around people. And that's more of an activity than an aspect of the moon itself. But it's something associated in our psyche with nighttime, with lunar energy, because that's when those kinds of people want to be active, is at night. All right, now let's go to the sun. Some of the good aspects of the sun are strength. And strength is, I define this loosely. Strength is a solar power, in the way that I'm going to talk about, in virtuousness, because it is a natural feeling that human beings have to be kind of a spiritual warrior during the day. Within ourselves, we are attracted to light. We are attracted to activity during the day. Spiritual people, anyway. Because we can see everything, we can interact with the world, we can dominate in the world, and everyone who isn't a very spiritual person wants to dominate in some way in the world, and we feel the call to dominate during the day because there's more to be dominated, there's more people, there's more opportunity to dominate others. That's the negative aspect of strength. The good aspect of strength, let's go ahead and put that as negative, positive, pause, and negative. So two aspects. The one I just talked about is negative. And the positive aspect of solar strength is that you are bound to your natural human cycle. And we're naturally supposed to be active during the day, just in general. That's kind of how we as human beings have existed for a very long time. So it's a part of our DNA in essence. And to fall into that cycle of being active during the day, working during the day, and working in the light of the world, that provides one with the strength of cycles. You are attuned to the cycle that you're meant to be attuned to as a human being. And that's the positive aspect, and it gives us strength during the day because we're attuned to the cycles that we are instinctually drawn to be attuned to. Okay, so strength has a positive and negative side, solar energy, and probably another positive aspect of the sun, of solar, is a light energy complex. Now, what does a light energy complex mean? And this is a positive aspect. A light energy complex basically means that subconsciously, when we identify with the sun, not just active in the day, but when we identify with it, we look up to it, and we're happy in its rays. This actually produces a certain amount of energy within us, and this is all subconscious magical working. But it produces an energy in us when we basically fall in love with the sun. When we fall in love with the sun and light as a human being, subconsciously this produces an energy that we actually want to produce light in our actions. We want to be as a bright sun, basically. We want to be one of those rays that help other people. This isn't necessarily what happens all the time, and this actually doesn't happen most of the time. But for those who are attuned to the sun, who attune themselves to the sun and its energy and what it provides, you develop a light energy complex where you try to produce light in people's lives. And this is all subconscious magical workings that oftentimes happen without us knowing it. And but this is only for people who are identify themselves with the sun, who feel a connection to it that the rest of us really don't. This is why it doesn't happen most of the time, but the potential is there, is that a light energy complex is just a feeling of identification with the sun that sometimes we can put our finger on. But if you know exactly your connection to the sun and how it manifests in your life and how you can use it in a positive way, then the light energy complex can become an intrinsic part of us as an individual. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and go to a couple negative points about solar energy. Is that it can be, and we'll go ahead and put, well, this below here is negative. We'll go ahead and put the negative aspect of solar energy is destructive. Now, what does it mean when I say the negative side of the sun can be destructive? This isn't for everybody, and maybe for people to varying degrees, but the energy of the sun, the identification with it, its force can be destructive if you are identified with the sun. You identify yourself with the sun, but you would do it in a negative way. You cast your rays basically as a human being in life, and this is an allegory, or an analogy rather. You cast your rays freely and briskly and shine as an individual, but you don't care who gets burnt by your actions. This is something that the sun manifests in the literal form, in the form of drought, the scathing of people, the negative aspect of heat on the earth when there's too much of it. You can be that as an individual. Even if you don't think to yourself, I'm identifying with the destructive aspect of the sun, you can be that as an individual, and subconsciously within our being, we are basically connecting ourselves to the destructive possibility of the sun. That's the destructive potential that we all hold within ourselves, and we can accidentally identify with it like most people do if they're destructive in that way. Don't care who they step on as long as they get higher, as long as they shine. They don't care who's burnt. We tend to we tend to be connected to that part of the sun and without knowing it. And the last, probably negative aspect of the sun that I've kind of touched on in strength is, and there's a whole bunch more points I can go over. These are just off the top of my head, and these are the ones that I feel I should talk about. So there's a whole lot of other points, but I want to talk about pride. How is pride solar energy? Pride is, you feel powerful because as an individual, and this is, most people don't know that they're doing this, that they're connected to this part of the sun that is pride. As an individual, you feel like because you're shining, because you're so great, you're better than others. And this is pride. This is the part of the solar energy that people sometimes naturally are drawn to, who are egotistical without even knowing it. The part of the sun, of solar energy, that is pride, is basically a manifestation of our own desire to feel more important than others, our desire to be above others. And as I touched on this in strength, and if we were going to go to the Mahabharata, which is the epic of mankind, and it's a major Hindu epic poem. It's the longest one ever recorded in history, and the Bhagavad Gita is actually in it, which is like the Hindu Bible. If we're going to go there, Karna is the son of the sun. And he represents pride within the human body that we have to conquer. He shines. You can't look directly at him because it'll burn you. It'll burn your eyes figuratively. It's very hard to avoid his rays, and his rays are damaging. And he doesn't care who is harmed by his display of force, by his shining upon everybody. He just cares about shining. And this actually leads me to a point that I wasn't planning on talking about, even as I've been going through this. And a positive aspect of the sun is that it's very similar to the destructive and prideful one, is that the sun gives freely of its rays. When the sun gives freely, and it's needed, like all the plant life literally all the plant life in the world rely on the sun's rays, and it's given freely. The sun doesn't ask anything in return. Literally physically, the sun doesn't ask for anything in return. It doesn't get anything back from the light that it provides to plants, and then they perform photosynthesis. It doesn't demand anything back. It gives these rays, and things benefit from it. We benefit through daytime in the world, and the heat when we need it. This is the positive aspect of casting the rays. And this is what Karna in the Mahabharata is also described as. He could never refuse anything that was asked of him. Even in the armor that he was born with on his body, he tore it off when somebody asked him for it. Because he didn't know how not to give, is how it's put. And the sun doesn't know how not to give, because it gives freely. And this is a compassionate aspect of the sun that we don't see in the moon, because the moon is more reserved. The moon is, of course, calmness, patience, and wisdom, but it's also reserved, which can be positive or negative, really. But out of the way, reserved is not the aspect of the sun. The sun is always giving, and giving freely to everyone. Now, why do I have a little sun inside the moon and a little moon inside the sun? And I have this because, basically, the natures operate in conjunction. They aren't separate from one another, and there are aspects of the moon that are in the heart of why the sun does what it does. Like giving freely is basically an aspect of wisdom, and destruction can be also an aspect of reserving power for oneself, or for basically the moon. Well, the moon being in the sun is the one I just went over, but the sun being in the moon. Let's say, in truth, the negative or the positive aspect of strength, the good aspect of strength that we should embrace, is in the sun, because in order for the moon to gain strength, it has to have patience, calmness, wisdom. And I'm talking about energies. I'm not talking about the literal forces of the literal existence of the moon and the sun. I'm talking about the energies within ourselves, within our psyche. In order for us to gain the positive strength of the sun, we have to have patience and wisdom to gain that strength, to be able to admit it. If we were going to make up a quick story, I'd say that the sun gained its strength because it was patient and calm and gathered the strength to start emitting light. And these, I'm talking about the energies, like the energies within ourselves, not the literal. This isn't literal as far as the moon and the sun. But And light and dark, reserved and light energy, they can't exist without each other, because in order for them to exist, they have to be relative to something, and for them to be relative to something, they have to have several layers of relationships within our own psyches, in the literal world of push and pull and gravitation, and between people and society. All these energies have to exchange, and the sun and the moon, I believe, are attuned to the earth, but not only the earth, but to, in gravitational terms, but into human beings. I believe that our consciousness actually has effect on the sun and the moon, and that we exchange with the sun and the moon energies based on our sentient consciousness being able to understand these aspects and embracing them or rejecting them. And basically that's all I have to say about the sun and the moon, and them being within each other, them needing each other, them having certain aspects that are constantly dual in nature and pushing and pulling each other. And basically I went over more aspects of each than I did about their union. But I hope that you found this interesting. You know, I never really plan these. I don't write anything down. I just kind of go off the top of my head. So if you saw any of this and it was like, hey, I didn't think about that before, feel free to give me a like down there. If you didn't like it at all, feel free to comment, give me suggestions. But I really appreciate you watching, and y'all have a great day.